The wind and sand were raging. Yet the large caravan continued its journey through the desolate ghost desert. The yellow sands in the desert were eerie and strange, but the caravan had its own special methods to avoid harm from the sandstorm, so their journey proceeded smoothly without any problems. For several days, the caravan traveled through the desert, with nothing unusual occurring. However, little did they know, the Ghost King realm, along with the overlord of the monster realm and the black fiend dragon wolf, were heading toward the Western Divine Palace, setting the stage for a truly intriguing spectacle that was slowly unfolding. This is strange. The goods being escorted by the caravan are being guarded so tightly. It seems a bit odd. Xiao Yan and Xun'er rode horses in the middle of the convoy, with Xiao Yan's gaze frequently shifting between the soul beasts carrying the goods, unable to suppress his thoughts. Within the caravan, some soul beasts were tasked with transporting goods. These goods, however, were as heavily guarded as if they were made of rock, and it was impossible to discern their contents from the outside. Even with Xiao Yan's soul power, he couldn't detect anything, though he could see that the soul beasts were struggling to carry them. These goods must be extremely heavy. Furthermore, within the caravan, there was a very exquisite sedan chair. The chair was surrounded by a circle of black patterns, completely blocking any attempts to probe it. Even Xiao Yan couldn't detect anything unusual. However, he felt uneasy, as if something strange was hidden inside. Yet, due to the caravan's considerable strength, Xiao Yan didn't take any rash action. Something's wrong with the goods this caravan is escorting. Xiao Yan's gaze swept around, and he transmitted his thoughts to Xun'er through their soul connection. They're publicly delivering supplies, but secretly, they might be transporting something for the Divine Hall? Xun'er nodded slightly, agreeing with Xiao Yan's suspicion. We should be near the outer edge of the Western Divine Palace. Let's be cautious, Xiao Yan said, and both of them once again carefully concealed their auras. Lord, there's no storm ahead. We are on the correct route, the scout responsible for exploring the path reported. Young Xiao, you've worked hard. I'll commend you when we return, the caravan leader said with a smile. Hee, Captain. It was the two of you who pointed out the right route. I was just verifying it. Without your help, we would have wasted a lot of time. The desert's patterns are something only those within your group would know, Yang Xiao grinned. Without Xiao Yan and Yuer's guidance, they would have encountered many difficulties. Xiao Yan felt a growing respect for Yuer, as she was the one who had provided all the directions. Thank you both. Tomorrow, we'll arrive at the Western Divine Palace successfully, the caravan leader said with a smile. Through the past few days, Xiao Yan had learned that this caravan was known as the Wind Snake Mercenary Group, led by Feng Qingyu, a powerful individual at the mid-stage of 6-star Docian. They specialized in transporting supplies for the 4 great divine halls and were considered experts in their field. No matter how fierce the sandstorms in the desolate ghost desert, they always managed to deliver the goods successfully. A day passed quietly. We've arrived, the Western Divine Palace. The next day, as the caravan's goods and Xiao Yan glanced toward the distance, they saw a massive structure floating above the desert and gasped in awe. This towering structure resembled a palace and exuded a solemn atmosphere. It was enormous, and what made it even more baffling was that it was floating in the air above the desert. An utterly strange sight. Everyone, stop here. This is the forbidden ground of the Divine Palace. A voice came from the vicinity, and as they approached within several thousand meters of the palace, the sand beneath their feet suddenly trembled. Moments later, a group of black-armored guards appeared, blocking their way. Shin guards, these are the supplies we're delivering to the Divine Palace. Please inspect them. Feng Qingyu greeted them with a smile. Someone, check the goods, one of the Shin guards said, exchanging a glance with Feng Qingyu. Then, with a wave of his hand, several shadows appeared and began to inspect the supplies. However, the inspection was quite peculiar. The guards didn't open the thick stone-like supplies. Instead, they used a special power to erode them, nodding in satisfaction. As for the exquisite sedan chair, they didn't even bother to check it and simply gestured to the Shin guards. The check is complete. You may enter now. Special guards will escort you to the storage area. Things have been turbulent lately, so stay alert, the Shin guard said, his gaze subtly sweeping across the caravan. He had grown familiar with this group and could easily detect anything amiss. Wait, where are two people? Go ahead. Watching the crowd's agitation, the mystic guard waved his hand. A massive gust of wind and sand surged forth, sweeping up the merchant convoy and their goods, and shooting them toward the massive palace in the distance. As Xiao Yin and Xun'er entered, they immediately slipped into the cargo carried by one of the soul beasts. Hidden safely amidst the goods, they traveled alongside Feng Qingyu and the others, entering the Western Divine Palace, which was suspended in mid-air. After all, if they didn't do this, once the Mystic Guard discovered the truth, the consequences would be unimaginable. What are all these things? At that moment, Xiao Yin and Xun'er, standing amidst the goods, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The items placed on many of the soul beasts appeared rock-like, but upon closer inspection, they revealed a vast, open space inside, similar to a space ring, spanning hundreds of meters. Within this space, various crystal blocks of different shapes were stored. These crystals emitted an incredibly bright and powerful suction force. Xiao Yin could vaguely feel his spirit wandering, and even the flames within his body were giving off a strange aura. These things, it seems like the master of ferocious souls has been secluded here. Xun'er observed, getting up and moving around. She gently pressed her hand on one of the crystals, and immediately, the terrifying suction force began to draw in some of the ghostly energy within her body. Fortunately, there was no significant harm. These should be special crystals designed to isolate the sacred flame's power. They are called flame-devouring crystals. As the name suggests, their function is to devour flames and weaken their power, temporarily storing that power. Given the number of flame-devouring crystals here, I suspect they were prepared for the master of ferocious souls. Xun'er spoke slowly. Remember to stick close to me when we enter the Divine Hall. I know you're strong, but the powerhouses in the Western Divine Palace can easily obliterate you. I don't want you to make any mistakes, or else. Xun'er repeatedly warned Xiao Yin. Understood. Xiao Yin nodded firmly. With his current strength and soul power, he could clearly sense that there were numerous powerful beings within the Divine Palace who could easily kill him, so he remained extremely cautious. Under the Master of Ferocious Souls' 4 Divine Halls, within the Western Divine Palace. Palace Master, the situation is now clear. You should quickly join forces with the other 4 Palace Masters to capture the Light Demon. If the Light Demon and the Soul-Devouring Domain join forces, it will be a devastating blow to our ferocious soul domain, said one of the figures standing in the palace, his brow furrowed and his tone urgent. At the heart of the Western Divine Palace, in the Central Hall, was Feng Hao's residence. The entire space was silver, with countless thunderbolts flickering in and out, clearly constructed specifically for Feng Hao. In the center of the hall were a few white jade pillars, and standing tall was a magnificent throne. On the throne sat Feng Hao, the palace master of the Western Divine Palace, flanked by 2 men exuding a formidable, invincible aura. The first was a middle-aged man, his face fierce and terrifying, his muscles solid and thick with prominent silver lightning patterns that pulsed with overwhelming, shocking power. A massive axe stood behind him, crackling with thunder. The axe's blade bore a terrifying and strange thunder beast engraving, which emitted a violent aura. Feng Hao, the palace master of the Western Divine Palace, was at the mid-stage of 8-star Do Xian. The 2 men beside him were the twin guards of the Western Divine Palace, also his trusted subordinates, Cold Wing and GMO. Both were at the full stage of 7-star Do Xian, truly Feng Hao's right and left hands. This can't be rushed, Feng Hao said, shaking his head casually before speaking with helplessness. But Palace Master, such a great opportunity. If we don't seize it, I'm afraid. Cold Wing began to speak. Do you know why the Light Demon and the Soul-Devouring Domain haven't sent their strongest to attack and are only using some small fry? Feng Hao replied with a question. Could it be? GMO, upon hearing this, seemed to realize something and spoke in surprise. Exactly. They fear the Master of Ferocious Souls. When they attacked the Monster Realm before, the Master of Ferocious Souls had allied with the Demon Realm and the Buddhist Realm, so they're probably cautious. After all, The demon realm and the Buddhists have some history with the Master of Ferocious Souls. Feng Hao laughed. I wonder where the Master of Ferocious Souls is now. It's been more than half a year since he last appeared. Even now, the command of the battle rests with the Palace Master of the Northern Divine Palace. After a moment, Coldwing asked again. The Master of Ferocious Souls is likely in secluded meditation, breaking through. Once he breaks through and reaches that level, I'm afraid. All right, you may go now. It's a time of many troubles, so remember to cooperate well with the Northern Divine Palace in all matters, he said lazily, sitting cross-legged on the throne and waving his hand. Understood, the two responded, falling silent. Leader of the Ferocious Soul Guards, it's your turn to act. As the two guards left, in the void of space, Feng Hao softly called out to a particular spot. Swish! With a sound, the void rippled, and a man clad in black ancient script armor, his entire body enveloped in dark energy, stepped forward. Feng Hao, this time I owe you a great deal. When our master succeeds, your contributions will be unprecedented, the leader of the Ferocious Soul Guards said in a chilling voice as he appeared. Xiao, the leader of the Ferocious Soul Guards, commanded the most elite forces under the Master of Ferocious Souls. His strength was on par with Feng Hao's. The surface of Xiao's black armor was covered in countless strange black energies, which formed eerie ancient scripts. The ancient writings seemed to contain a disquieting power, sending chills down one's spine. The supplies have all been delivered. This is the last time. Whether we succeed or not now depends on the Master of Ferocious Souls, Feng Hao said. That Master of Ferocious Souls is quite a remarkable figure. To think he is willing to use the entire Ferocious Soul domain as a bargaining chip. With the soul-devouring domain and the light demon attacking, the Ferocious Soul domain's current strength is insufficient to defend. If the Master of Ferocious Souls fails to break through, our domain will fall into eternal destruction. If he succeeds, it will be a great victory. Truly, it's a gamble, Feng Hao chuckled. Who can say for certain with things of that level? After all, the master has been at that stage for far too long. By the way, it seems some flies have snuck into the Western Divine Palace. As his words fell, the surroundings grew quiet once more. This was the core of the Divine Palace, while on the other side, Xiao Yin and Xun'er found themselves in a precarious situation. What should we do now? Are we really just going to stay hidden here? Xiao Yin and Xun'er were still hiding among the rock-like supplies, feeling uneasy. Xiao Yin couldn't shake the feeling that being transported directly to the Master of Ferocious Souls' retreat would be highly noticeable. The simplest things were often the most dangerous. The number of powerful figures hidden in the Western Divine Palace far exceeded Xiao Yan's expectations. There were no small number of 7-star Docian, and faintly, there was even an aura that felt like that of a ruler. 8-star Docian. We can't rush things. Right now, this might be the only option we have, Xun'er said, scanning the surroundings helplessly. Don't worry, these supplies are exactly what the Master of Ferocious Souls needs, and someone will come to transport them. Our only hope is that this person's strength isn't too great. Otherwise, if they are too strong, our plan would be self-destructive. Xun'er wondered aloud. Let's hope so, but sitting and waiting won't get us anywhere, Xiao Yin said with a helpless shake of his head. He began to circulate his burning decision technique at high speed, but strangely, he didn't sense any trace of the lovesickness heartbreak flame, which puzzled him. The warehouse where the supplies were stored was eerily quiet. Even the exquisite palanquin was deeply embedded among the materials, and the stillness made one uneasy. Let's go take a look. After a while, Xiao Yin spoke. Are you crazy? Outside, there are many powerful figures from the Western Divine Palace. If we're discovered, it could be. My disguise isn't enough to fool the powerful 7-star Docian. As for 8-star Docian, they could easily see through it. So staying here is a waste of time. We can't risk it, Xiao Yin explained. I see. Hearing this, you were relaxed. Xiao Yin had been the one to maintain their disguises throughout their journey. Even Xun'er admired his skills. Unless someone was exceptionally strong, it was practically flawless. But after Xiao Yan's explanation, Xun'er nodded in agreement. Their strength was still weak, and if a 6-star Do Xian found them, it would be a death sentence. Not to mention a 7-star or 8-star. Also, I'm very curious. What exactly is inside that palanquin? After a moment, both figures appeared simultaneously in the warehouse. Inside the warehouse, large rock formations surrounded them. Strangely, the temperature was relatively warm, and there was even a hint of heat. Aside from that, there were irregularly shaped rock-like materials, with an exquisite palanquin placed at the center of the supplies. The palanquin itself was a bizarre red, surrounded by countless black gas, which formed ancient texts resembling those of a bygone era. Every time Xiao looked at it, a sense of horror surged within him. It seemed that this object was far from ordinary. This item, its origins must be extraordinary. In the dark warehouse, Xiao and Xun'er continued to circle around the exquisite sedan, probing but finding nothing. The black aura and ancient scripts surrounding the sedan blocked all their attempts to investigate and perceive, even making them feel a deep sense of unease. Something special was surely hidden inside the sedan. Any progress? Having wasted considerable time and still unable to crack the mystery of the sedan, Xiao turned to Xun'er and asked. At this point, he had no choice but to ask her. Not yet. This is the first time I've seen something like this, and my master never mentioned it, Xun'er replied, shaking her head. We don't have time. I sense several powerful auras heading this way. If we don't act now, we'll truly be out of time. Xiao said solemnly. But this item is so mysterious. We have no way of dealing with it. Xun'er nodded in agreement, though there was nothing they could do. Step back. Xiao frowned, then said cautiously, What are you going to do? This is the Western Divine Palace. Looking at the gray flames rising from Xiao body and the deep color of his pupils, Xun'er could not help but exclaim. Such extreme power, once fully unleashed, would likely be sensed by the powerful beings of the Western Divine Palace, and their situation would become dire. Vroom vroom. At that moment, the warehouse space was filled with gray energy, which then enveloped the entire area. A domain? Watching Xiao move, Xun'er finally felt relieved. Otherwise, if Xiao sacred flame aura had been released, it would have surely been noticed by the powerful beings of the Western Divine Palace, and they would have been walking straight into their doom. Undying fire. With the domain now in place, Xiao snorted, and the brilliant gray flames shot toward the exquisite sedan. However, Xiao still wasn't satisfied. Now that he had mastered the essence of 3 sacred flames, he wished he could fuse them completely. If the new sacred flame were fully merged, its power would surpass that of any of his current sacred flames. Of course, he couldn't use Mu Yingying's sacred flame. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The gray flames, like spirits, went berserk in the undying fire domain. As they appeared and were controlled by Xiao they flew toward the sedan. But no matter how fiercely the flames roared and unleashed their destructive force, the ancient black script surrounding the sedan showed no sign of being affected. No matter how the undying fire howled or unleashed its annihilating power, the exquisite sedan remained unmoved, as if nothing was happening. It can't be this bizarre. After several breaths, Xiao gave up on continuing the burn with the undying fire, his gaze fixed on the sedan as he hesitated. What could this thing be, able to resist the burning of the undying fire? The undying fire was ranked 17th on the sacred flame list. There are very few things in the world that could block its power. This must be related to the master of ferocious souls and the soul devouring of the lovesickness heartbreak flame, Xun'er said, trying to analyze. Flame-absorbing crystals can block the absorption of flame power, but this exquisite sedan is clearly something far more valuable than those flame-absorbing crystals. What exactly is it? Xiao muttered as he pondered. Wait, someone's coming. Just as Xiao was deep in thought within the undying fire domain, Xun'er's figure trembled, pulling Xiao up. The domain was then withdrawn, and they hid again among the rock-like materials. Swish swish. As soon as their figures vanished, a shadow silently slipped in through the warehouse entrance. Strange, I smell the scent of flames. As the newcomer entered, they immediately detected a strong flame aura in the air. The newcomer was none other than the great soul sovereign of the Ghost King realm, Xun'er, with a power level estimated to be around 7-star Dosien, though no one knew his exact strength. Because the ghostly soul body is especially sensitive to flames, he immediately noticed the flame power released by Xiao's undying fire. Forget it, let's get down to business. Looking at the array of materials before him, Xun'er shook his head. Flame-absorbing crystals? It seems the master of ferocious souls really has found a way for soul bodies to devour sacred flames, Xun'er muttered with a sinister laugh, though he didn't hesitate too much. His steps led him straight toward the exquisite sedan in the center. Wait, what is this? Not long after, when Xun'er's gaze landed on the silent, standing sedan, he exclaimed, "A forbidden cage? Forbidden cage?" Xiao, who was hiding inside the supplies, slightly shook his head upon hearing the words. He seemed somewhat familiar with them, but couldn't immediately recall what exactly it referred to. How could this be? It's actually the forbidden cage. Xun'er, who was beside Xiao, suddenly trembled, her voice filled with shock. What exactly is this thing? Xiao asked, trying to understand. The forbidden cage is a divine artifact, ranked 10th on the immortal artifact list in the Great Thousand Worlds. Xun'er's chest heaved violently, and she spoke after a pause. The forbidden cage can isolate all powers, temporarily sealing certain things, preserving their purest form of spirituality. This includes living beings. In other words, humans, Xun'er said in shock. This just got interesting. What exactly does the master of ferocious souls want? Xiao's gaze became fiery, and a faint, barely noticeable aura emanated from his forehead. Even the treasures in his imperial flame ring subtly released a strange energy, as if they were either attracting or resisting each other, mysterious and unpredictable. The master of ferocious souls is collecting forbidden cages, probably to devour the heartbreak flame. It seems like he hasn't taken that step yet, Xiao thought. Luckily, before I came out, I got some special items from Lord of the Three Soul Guards to deal with the Master of Ferocious Souls. A cold, eerie sound echoed from beneath the black robe. Oh, seems like, as the Master said, some little flies slipped in. Just as Xun'er was about to act, the warehouse was completely covered by a scarlet energy ripple. Russell, really a bunch of useless fools. You couldn't stop them for long. The strength of the Western Divine Palace is truly as formidable as the rumors say, Xun'er said with a mock calmness in the dark, a faint smile on his face. But he knew that this person was the leader of the patrol guards in the Western Divine Palace. A late-stage 7-star Dosien, GMO. The real drama was about to unfold. The Ghost King Realm's forces, the great soul sovereign, Xun'er, long time no see, GMO waved his hand, directly covering the area with a layer of scarlet energy, slowly forming a field that sent a chilling aura through the air. Head guard of the Western Divine Palace, GMO? Huh? Seems like those soul disciples were too useless. Xun'er sneered as a powerful pressure from GMO's domain swept over him. GMO, the head guard of the Western Divine Palace, was far too strong for Xun'er to handle at the moment. However, GMO had forgotten that he was only at the late stage of 7-star Dosien, while Xun'er had reached the peak of 7-star Dosien. With the treasures he had obtained from the 3 soul guards, Xun'er's overall strength was now strong enough to rival an early 8-star Dosien, which was why he was so confident. You Ghost King Realm have secretly been colluding with humans to form the Soul Hall and engage in dirty dealings between the human realm and the ghost realm. Such filthy pests are despised by both humans and gods. They deserve to be eradicated, GMO said, cutting straight to the point with no politeness. Lord GMO, you sure know a lot, but your ferocious soul domain is no different from ours. Let's fight. Xun'er knew that if he didn't deal with this man, GMO would definitely hinder his plans. They had been preparing for this moment with the Master of Ferocious Souls for a long time, and Xun'er had even signed a military contract with the Soul Hall's master. If the sacred flame wasn't in hand, or if the Master of Ferocious Souls broke through into reincarnation, Xun'er's end would be tragic. Boom! A series of energy rings, like dark shackles, erupted from Hun Mietian's black robe, filling Jimo's domain with an extreme sense of eeriness. Poison attribute? After a moment, seeing GMO unaffected, Hun Mietian muttered to himself. The poison attribute was quite rare, but the stronger the user, the more formidable the combat ability. Correct. But your reward is being sent straight to hell. Without a second thought, Hun Mietian unleashed a violent attack using his poison domain against GMO. Crash! A brilliant energy streak surged out like waves, instantly turning the area into a perilous ocean. These two are fighting so fiercely. Aren't they afraid of attracting the strong from the Western Divine Palace? Xun'er asked, feeling the violent battle fluctuations. The Soul Hall is actually a joint operation between the Ghost King realm and human forces. That means the Soul Clan is the native species, and this so-called Soul Hall isn't ruled solely by the Soul Clan. They must have some secrets. Xiao nodded. What should we do now? There was no other choice. The fluctuations in the battle between the two seven-star Docian were simply too overwhelming. Even with the separation of domains, the pressure still unsettled the mind. This was why Xun'er asked the question. We can't stay here any longer. I have a feeling that Hun Mietian came prepared. We should do this. Xiao whispered beside Xun'er. Is this really a good idea? If we're discovered, our situation could become even more dangerous. Xun'er frowned slightly upon hearing Xiao plan. While it was feasible, it carried far too many risks. We have no choice but to try. If we don't, we won't be able to reach the closed-door training area of the Master of Ferocious Souls. This is a chance we can't miss. If it fails, we can always find another opportunity. Xiao nodded seriously. All right. Xun'er nodded lightly in agreement. The two of them silently withdrew from the supplies and, with Xiao disguise, began walking around inside the Divine Hall. As for the Forbidden Cage and the flame-swallowing crystals, they ultimately ended up in the hands of Xiao, the leader of the Ferocious Soul Guards. He personally delivered them to the Master of Ferocious Souls' closed-door training area. Oddly enough, since then, GMO seemed to have disappeared completely. He never appeared again, and the patrol soldiers within the Western Divine Palace were unfamiliar. However, no one in the Western Divine Palace seemed to notice. The Western Divine Palace floated above the desert, surrounded by a special energy that shielded it from the destructive sandstorms and the dry temperatures. Inside, the pathways were extensive, with countless intricate routes intersecting one another. Even someone like Fong Hao would likely struggle to fully understand the maze. So many paths. How do we proceed? Xiao and Xun'er were still disguised as two guards on patrol. However, each time they came across a fork, they found themselves in a dilemma. Each path led to a different location, and if they chose the wrong one, it would waste a lot of time. Xun'er rolled her eyes and then took out a parchment. Her beautiful eyes darted between the map and the dimly lit passages ahead. Xiao hadn't wanted to look at the parchment, but when he casually glanced at it, he was shocked. He couldn't help but curse under his breath. The parchment in Xun'er's hand was the most detailed architectural plan of the Western Divine Palace, clearly marking every danger and safe zone. With it, entering the core of the palace would be a breeze. The map Xiao had received previously was a rough sketch of the locations of the four great divine halls in the desolate Ghost Desert, while the one Xun'er held now was a detailed map of the Western Divine Palace. Xiao couldn't help but feel like he had been played. This map was given to me by my teacher after I returned. So, I didn't lie to you before. Xun'er explained, noticing Xiao changing expression. Now, what should we do? Xiao temporarily set aside his feelings and calmly asked. There were too many powerful beings in the Western Divine Palace. Although he was at his peak, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. After all, they would eventually face the Master of Ferocious Souls, which would be the real battle to the death. Just so you know, this is the original construction map of the Western Divine Palace. But it's been over 1,000 years, so I can't guarantee it's entirely accurate. However, when we first entered, I took a quick glance around, and it seemed to match the map I have. Xun'er told Xiao. We're here now. Xun'er pointed to a spot on the edge of the map. Xiao looked up and saw a large building on the map. Inside the building were countless intricate markings that made his head spin. The map was full of black dots, which seemed to represent something special. Some lines were also present. However, the most prominent features were the 3 red markings inside the building. There are only 2 possible places where the Master of Ferocious Souls might be in closed-door training within the entire Divine Palace. Before Xiao Yin could react, Yun'er pointed at 2 red marks on the edges of the building on the map. When Xiao Yin focused on the red markings, he momentarily lost his concentration. So, where should we go now? After a brief hesitation, Yun'er was uncertain and quickly asked. Xiao Yin possessed the power of the sacred flame, while the Master of Ferocious Souls wielded the heartbreak flame. Wait a minute, you said there are only 2 places, and these 2 are located to the north and south of the buildings on the map. But isn't there a red mark at the center as well? What's going on? Xiao Yin asked, confused. I don't know, but when the teacher gave me this map, she specifically warned me not to go to that location in the center of the buildings. Why? Xiao Yin inquired, but the soft voice that followed held a strange kind of power. Because it's a place of certain death. The words carried an eerie undertone. Certain death? Xiao Yin was about to ask more, but seeing Yu'er's serious expression, he murmured to himself, let's head south. We're very close to the southernmost point now. After a moment of thought, Xiao Yin decided. Since there are only 2 possible places where the Master of Ferocious Souls could be hiding, they would eventually find it, though it would take more time. However, Xiao Yin was still wary of the red mark at the center of the building complex, or perhaps it was the tribal mark that seemed to be drawn to that spot. The outer area of the Western Divine Palace is mostly inhabited by miscellaneous people, but the inner part of the Divine Palace is different. The residents there are all powerful individuals with status, Yun'er continued. Next to the buildings, you can see small grids. Each of these grids represents a separate room, which is where these strong beings reside. If we follow this map, there are 3 rooms left before we reach the southernmost point, 6 in the center, and 10 in the northernmost area. I hope we're not too unlucky, Xiao Yin thought quietly, but unfortunately, things rarely go as hoped. Whoosh whoosh. They rolled up the map and proceeded into the dimly lit space. This stone door is guarded more laxly since it leads to the residences of powerful individuals, Yun'er said as they arrived at a massive stone door. How strong are the guards? Xiao Yin asked cautiously. They're not stronger than the late stage of 7-star Docian, Yun'er replied casually. In that case, I'm not too worried, Xiao Yin nodded. However, their strength will not be lower than 6-star Docian. Those who live in the inner sanctum of the Divine Palace are either very powerful or possess special skills, Yun'er added in a low voice. We've come this far. We can't leave empty-handed. Let's go. Without hesitation, Xiao Yin geared up, fully prepared for the worst, and moved toward the stone door. Creak. With a slight raise of his hand, Xiao Yin effortlessly pushed open the stone door. It opened just enough to let both of them slip through before closing again. Hee, it's been a long time since any little ones came here. This time, I won't let them slip away. A light, ethereal voice rang out just as Xiao Yin and Yun'er entered the stone door. What's going on? Xiao Yin muttered, as the stone door closed behind them, plunging them into darkness. This should be the first test for the southernmost mark. Stay alert, Yun'er said cautiously, uncertain of what to expect. V-room. Xiao Yin summoned a yellowish flame in his palm, instantly illuminating the room. As the light revealed the space, they found themselves in an odd, cavernous area filled with rows of gleaming test tubes and multicolored liquids. Additionally, large transparent crystal coffins stood before them, some containing dried human bones, others fresh corpses, creating an eerily terrifying atmosphere in the room. Glug. Seeing the disturbing scene before them, if not for their exceptional mental fortitude, they might have been paralyzed by fear. The sight of so many corpses and strange liquids suggested this place was involved in some dark, unknown experiments. Is this something from your soul hall? Xiao Yin turned to Yun'er, clearly recognizing the setup as something from the soul hall. Yes, these are indeed materials we use for research at Soul Hall. But why are they here? Yun'er replied, her tone turning wary. Also, Our research doesn't involve human bones or corpses directly. Something's not right here, she added, her expression serious. Hee, little treasures, a strange voice suddenly echoed. Who's there? Hearing the spine-chilling voice, Xiao Yin and Yu'er quickly stood back to back, eyes scanning the surroundings. After a thorough search, they couldn't find the source of the voice. Hallucination? It's not an illusion. It's a powerful expert who specializes in cultivating soul power. Xiao Yin shook his head, and the earthy yellow sacred flame shot directly into the sky, forming a dazzling sun that illuminated the entire space. Clunk, clunk. At that moment, a doll-like figure, resembling a porcelain doll, was suspended right at the top of the room. Its pupils radiated a fiery light, staring greedily at Xiao Yin, a wave of greed emerging from its gaze. Master Xianyu? Seeing the doll hanging upside down from the ceiling like a porcelain figurine, Yu'er suddenly gasped. Whoosh, whoosh. Be careful. Without a sound or any movement, the doll shot down from the ceiling like a wild horse, its speed surging as it rushed toward Yu'er. Soul technique, spirit stream. Although Yu'er was surprised to see an elder from the Soul Hall here, she didn't forget her situation. Just as the doll was about to strike, dazzling soul power surrounded her body like a stream, forming a brilliant shield. Thud. The doll's speed and destructive power collided with Yu'er's defense, halting in mid-air. Retreat. Seeing Yu'er's grim expression, Xiao Yin immediately understood the massive power contained within the tiny doll's body. He quickly pulled Yu'er down to the ground. Little heir, is it you? After a brief pause, the doll began to slowly twist its head like a machine, then softly called out toward Yu'er. Master Xianyu. Hearing the doll call out, Yu'er's mental defenses crumbled instantly. Her body trembled, and the dazzling soul power dissipated. This guy doesn't seem right. Though Xiao Yin appeared calm, he remained alert to the doll, which was highly suspicious.